Hello, guys. How are you all this evening? I'm the recording. Here we go. And the other thing that I want to do is show you that I've already posted the second assignment for the class project. So I'll go back to the modules again. And I'm cruising down here. And let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to end up putting this under the class project instead of under this week, make it easier to find. But anyway, I'll open it up. It's a lot like the last one, only this time we're talking about values. Okay, so there's a bit of a write-up here. You guys can read this on your own. The assignment, I've provided you guys some things I'd like you to read. The assignment's structured a lot like the first one. I'm reading to you now. I've selected articles I want you to read. Like last time, I want you to read for retention, meaning read to understand, right? Read, and look for the big ideas in the articles and take notes like you did last time. These notes will form the foundation for your personal brainstorming, just like last time. So there's three kinds of articles that talk about how values relate to career decisions, articles that help you discover your own values if maybe you're uncertain exactly how you think about things. A lot of people feel that way. And then articles that talk about values from a management and a leadership perspective. Since we're all in a business program, studying a business course, you should look at it from that perspective too. And then here's your goals. Identify your personal goals. And the second goal is to identify potential careers based on the values that you've already said are important to you. So some of these articles actually include different tests or processes that you could apply to uncover your values. If you need help figuring out how you feel about things or what your values are, I would suggest maybe trying them out. I think they're pretty useful from that perspective. I looked them over. I think they can be useful. However, they're not technically part of the assignment. They're there to help you think through. All I really want you to do is here. Read each of the articles and take notes. Bullet style like last time is fine. And then you're going to turn in your notes along with an essay that discusses, one, what your personal values are. B, how you think those values will influence the way that you're going to approach the work you're involved in today. And C, possible jobs that you can consider because they're a good reflection of you and your values and ethics. So these notes and bullets should be no more than 2 pages. Your essay type response should cover points A through C I just covered. And that part should be no more than 3 pages. Please upload your Word document to that same Dropbox folder that you've used before, no later than October 10th by 11:59. So you got a couple of weeks to do it. Does that sound pretty clear?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the same general process that we've already used once. Now that you guys have figured out what I'm looking for in that first assignment, this one should be more straightforward, right? I hope.
Yes.
It looks like it. Yes.
Yeah, good, great. And then here's the articles. So, I've set it up. Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know how I did that. Let me go back to it. I don't know why it shut. Okay, so let me go back and find them. So here they are, right? And I've hyperlinked the articles for you to see. So all you need to do is click on it, for instance, and it'll take you to, reload. Why did it do that? I'll have to go back and figure that one out. So here's the next one, importance of values in career decisions. So just read through it and do what I said and you'll be fine, okay? I'll fix that one hyperlink so you don't have trouble with it. All good?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So let's jump into our lecture content for the evening. I'll open up my PowerPoint and we'll get cooking here. Well, I say we will. I want to figure out why I am having trouble. Oh, I know why. It's because this gallery thing is hiding my controls. What if I move it? Don't you hate this when things don't work well? Here we go. Okay, so tonight we're talking about positive messages. Last week we talked about, if I recall correctly, we talked about email. Now we're gonna start talking about the different types of documents and letters and compositions that we typically write in business. And tonight's message is about positive messages. So when we write a positive message, it's sent via email, memos, and business letters. And so we're going to learn how to format these. Positive messages share the following traits. One, they're routine and they're straightforward. Usually if you've got a negative message, it's not something that you write all the time. But in this case, we're talking about positive, and a positive message could be, we've received your request for, a refund, and we are happy to, meet your request, or whatever it could be. So you get a lot of these all the time, and, it's routine, done all the time. Two, helping workers conduct everyday business. So that's another thing that we do. So for instance, somebody in the office might send you a request, could you please help me with X, Y, or Z? And your response is going to be, yes, I certainly can. Or you're sending the request yourself and you're sending it from a positive perspective. Now, if you combine 1 and 2 together, routine and straightforward, and help workers conduct everyday business, it brings you to 3. They make up most of what we communicate in business all the time. So learning to do this well is really important because you're going to do it with a lot of frequency, which takes us to 4. Since we do it so much, we absolutely have to do these things really well. So what channels would we use? Channels meaning, is it email? Is it a letter? Is it a blog? Is it a webinar? How do we best do this? Well,
Letter.
Sorry?
Letter.
Yes, a letter would definitely be one, Zoe. You're right. Email is another. You might send a memo. Emails and memos, like we talked about last week, are very similar. The big difference between the two is that memos are typically on paper and not emailed out. Although mostly these days we're sending a lot more emails and they're replacing memos to a large extent. Letters. So like you just said, Zoe, social media. Whenever we post things on social media, we're hopefully, especially if it's representing the brand, we're going to post something that's positive. Blogs are always going to come across positive as well. Have you guys ever read blogs before?
Yes.
Which ones do you
Yes.
like? Which ones do you guys read?
My backyard chickens.
Really? That's
Yeah.
a blog?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Okay. And I suppose it helps you take care of your backyard chickens.
Absolutely.
Wow. Cool. And then finally, instant messaging and texts. All of these things are great vehicles to send a positive message. Here's one. Now, this is something that I just screenshot off of my smartphone a while back. I was working with a client of mine His name is Edgar, and he owns a ServPro business. Do you guys know what ServPro is?
Mm-mm. No.
ServPro is a company that if your home has a fire or a flood in it, and you need to have somebody come in and clean things up and help you dry it out or deal with the damage from the fire, ServPro does that. Okay.
Gotcha.
So this is an example of text messaging in a positive way. Hope you're having a great week. Do you have a date set for an upcoming meeting? When should we talk about this new project, right? So that was you can see it's very positive. His response, likewise, will be like that. His response was, we do have the second out of 3 meetings scheduled for, I believe, May. I'm not in the office, but I won't look into it in the next day or so and confirm with you what that is. We are all very excited for this meeting to happen, as we have made so much progress since the last time we met, blah, blah, blah. So just, it's typical kind of conducting of business, right? Then I came back and responded, and then he said, I'll be glad to do that, and thank you. So it's really nothing out of the ordinary. I'm sure you guys do this kind of stuff all the time already. That's example of an IM. It could have just as easily have been an email. Let's look at business letters. Whenever, usually, right, especially if it's more important than the kind of communication we just looked at with this stuff that I was showing you. If there's more detail to it, and maybe more formality because it's a negotiation or something, or other examples that we can get into later, still the preferred channel to communicate with people outside the company would be a letter. Letters are going to go to your company's suppliers. Maybe you've got dealings with government agencies. Let's say that you're a food manufacturing plant and you process meat. If you're a company like that, in order to process meat in a plant, you have to have a representative from USDA on site when you're doing that, okay? So letters would go back and forth about operations and things that have been happening. And, maybe you're dealing with needing to get your plant's certification for the coming year, ready before January comes along. And that's just an example of what you might be communicating. You could have letters to vendors and also letters to customers. These letters are going to encourage feedback. They project a very favorable image of the organization because they're well written and they look very professional. They're always going to put this on your company stationery where there's a logo at the top and the address. And you guys know what the kind of documents I'm talking about, right? You guys have seen company stationery, I'm certain.
Yes.
Yes.
I would think so. You could also use it to promote future business. Let's say that you're dealing with an issue that you've been, discussing for some time, and you want to take the opportunity at the end of the message to say, hey, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you in the near future to discuss our company's launch of this new product. I think it could be really important for your business, something like that. So you're promoting future business, which is also why you want to have this professional image, why you want to have your communication be positive, and why you want to keep an open avenue for communication and feedback, because you're always looking ahead to the next opportunity. Letters provide a permanent record. Remember last week we said that if what you want is something hard going into a file, like a performance review or an evaluation or documentation about, relationships between you and a customer or something that you're going to hang on to and file away, you don't necessarily want to keep it in an email. It's much better to have it something that's more formal, something that is hard copy. So a letter would do a great job for that. Letters can be confidential too. I remember I said last week that when I was talking about email, that one of the problems with email is that you lose control of that as soon as you hit send. Now, of course, people can take your letter and make a copy of it and send it around to other folks, but not as readily, not as quickly as they can with an email. And because it was sent in an envelope, sealed and everything, there is sort of an implied understanding that this is between you and the person you sent it to, and not for the entire world to see. You're always going to have a letter that accompanies a contract. The contract will be full of the terms of the negotiations, and the letter would preface it to say, attached, please find the contract. This includes all of the deliberations and negotiations that both sides have been talking and working out over the last few weeks. If you still have any questions or things that you feel still need to be addressed, please let me know. Otherwise, I look forward to receiving, the signed document back by a certain date. That's the kind of thing that you would communicate when you send that document out. That letter would explain the terms of the contract, for instance. You can send a letter back and forth between vendors or partners or customers where you're sharing ideas. Let's say that you're a consultant to a business. That's the service you provide. You don't have a product you sell, but you sell a service. Well, in consulting, you're always talking about ideas. The consultant's ideas about what the client should do to improve their performance. And it would go right into that. Or you could be an architect. Here's another example. You could be an architect and you've got some different ways that you can envision the building looking when it's completed. You're going to, the first process would be to rough out some quick illustrations to get feedback from your client before you spend a lot more time going a lot more elaborately. That's one way to share ideas. And that could also be included along with a letter. Negotiating agreements. It goes right back to what we talked about. Answering vendor questions. You're going to have different kinds of documents along this vein. A vendor, if the vendor has been contacted by a customer about a new project, and the vendor has been requested to provide a bid or a quote to work on a new project, probably the vendor is going to have a number of questions that they would like answered so that their quote is as precise and accurate as it can be. So that could form, the basis for what goes into the letter. It's always a great thing just to once in a while send something out in case you haven't seen that customer for a while, like it's a newsletter, let's say, or it's just a quick hello, Bob, something that just goes out and says, hey, I want to keep my hand in things. Just a light touch to say, I've been thinking about you. And oh, maybe here's some interesting things that I saw recently that I wanted to share with you. That's just maintaining relations. Instances when managers are going to compose direct messages. Oh, by the way, before we go a lot further, let's talk about this. I think already we've talked at least once about strategy when we write a document. And what I mean by that is if you're going to write and you're expecting a certain response from your audience, that response could be anywhere from a neutral response, kind of a meh kind of a response, to extremely favorable. If it's anywhere in that range, you want to take a direct approach to the communication. If it's if you think that it could be anything worse than neutral response, from neutral all the way down to absolutely upset about what you just communicated, you want to take an indirect path. And we'll talk more about this in a moment. But tonight, we're talking about direct communication because we have positive messages to share. So these messages could be ones that make requests. You're responding to questions. Maybe you're delivering step-by-step instructions. And here's the writing plan for a direct request. Here we go. You'll have an opening. Like we saw last week in the email structure, there's always an opening. It's going to be, dear Bob. And then the first sentence is basically a summary of what the rest of the document is about. That's all part of the opening. You're going to ask one thing you could do in this opening is ask the most important question that you've got first, or express a polite command, a request. Like, please answer the following questions. It doesn't feel like a military command, but it's still basically a command. You're expecting them to do this for you. You don't need any sort of a long lead in to your request because you're anticipating that they're going to receive your request positively. Now, if we thought that the audience was going to feel negative about what we had to say or what we had to ask them, before you ask the question, you're probably going to provide support points that indicate why what you're about to ask is so important, or why it's in their benefit to support what you're asking them to do and go along with you. But in this case, since we think that they're already going to like what we have generally to talk about, or at least they're not going to be upset in any way, we can forego. We don't need a lead in of any sort. Now we go into the body. And if you remember last week when we talked about the body, this is the majority of the document that you're about to write, okay? For instance, if you started with a request, now you can start to come back and say, okay, this is why this is so important. You're explaining the request logically and courteously. If it's got multiple parts to it, and you want to make it easy for the receiver to see the multiple parts quickly and get the gist of what you're looking for right away without a lot of work, you could either use bullets or a numbered list. Do you guys remember from prior meetings when we would use a numbered list and when we would use bullets?
Number like processing step.
Yes,
Use
good
number.
job, Zoe. Yep, when the order of what is being done is important, you want to use numbers because that basically says, okay, first thing you do is this, and then you do number 2, and then you do number 3. If the order isn't important, you'd use bullets. A great way to get as much information as you can from the person that you're communicating with is to ask a series of open-ended questions. The difference now, and there's kind of 2 general types of questions. One is open-ended and one is closed-ended. A closed-ended question can be answered with a yes/no response. But that doesn't really give you all the information that you could have received if you'd opened it, if you'd written it in an open-ended way. For instance, a closed-ended question could sound like, will Jane complete her contractual obligation by January 4th? Okay, yes, no. But the open-ended question could say, first, how is Jane's progress, going with regards to our project? What difficulties is she possibly encountering? And when do you think she could be done? All of those things provide the reader, the person who's going to respond, with all kinds of room to provide you information that you may not have even guessed was happening. You could say it really simply like, I'd really like an update on Jane's progress on our project. Boy, that's really wide open. The other examples I just gave you a minute ago were more defined. But the last one I gave you is wide open, meaning you could receive who knows what in response, which could be really great because, like I said, it's difficult to anticipate what may be occurring. In the body, if you're making a request of somebody, remember we talked about this before too. people are always going to be wondering in their own mind, what's in it for me, right? So when you ask something of somebody, you want to ask it in such a way that they feel willing and happy and maybe even eager to perform your request, because there's an advantage to them doing it, and you want them to see that. Okay, so we've got an opening, we've got a body, now we've got a close. And the close for a direct request includes information that's stating specifically and courteously what action is to be taken. So basically we're saying, if you've written a letter about,
Sorry.
sorry?
My dogs.
No. If you've written a letter about, a need to know how the project is going, and because you're waiting on making some decisions based on what you hear back, you might want to let the person know that time is important to you. So for instance, please get back to me by December 13th could be really useful. Or they may feel like, there's no real rush to this because you didn't let them know that there was a sense of urgency about it. So they may get back to you a lot later than you had hoped for. So you want to let them know what exactly it is you're looking for. There you go. We mentioned an end date, okay? If that's important. And if you provide an end date, you also want to explain why that date's been set. So going back to my example about the project and you want the update, you could say, there are a number of next steps that I need to be working on now. It would really help me to receive your reply by X date. So they understand why the urgency. And you can make it easy for the person to respond to you. One way to do that could be give them, a format, or give them a form with the letter so they can just quickly answer the questions that you've got. That could be one way to do it. If it's more of a survey type thing that you're asking for, maybe you put it on SurveyMonkey. Have you guys ever used SurveyMonkey before? Have you ever heard of it?
I was
SurveyMonkey-
participating in it.
Sorry?
I participate in it, but I never start one in my life.
Okay. Well, for the rest of the group, SurveyMonkey is an online service where people can create, actual survey forms and send a link to folks requesting that they participate in the survey. Not only do you get the surveys back, but it'll automatically and immediately perform all of the analysis on responses to your survey. You can send surveys out using SurveyMonkey as long as it doesn't go more than 10 questions, and you can use that service for free. So this could be an easy thing to let people know if you have a number of questions. Say, just, here's the link to my, SurveyMonkey, document or survey. Please answer these by such and such a date. Again, or looking for other ways to make it easy for people to get back to you. Okay. Let's take a look at a request email for a minute. This is not a good example. We're going to find ways to improve this. Here we go. This is being sent from Patrick Banerjee to Caitlin Roberts. The subject is, there's a new policy, okay? This email is to inform you that I continue to receive disturbing reports about the misuse of email by employees. In the course of the past 3 months, I've heard of Facebooking, tweeting, and gaming. Excessive use of email, including downloads of videos, is sapping our bandwidth and slowing down the entire system. In view of the foregoing, I'm herewith instructing your office that an email policy to the staff is needed. By October 1st, a rough draft of a policy should be forthcoming. At the very minimum, it should inform each and every employee that email is for business only. Employees must be told that we reserve the right to monitor all messages. No videos should be in the email system without a valid reason, and we should not be using company internet access for Facebooking, tweeting, and gaming. No way. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call. Do you guys see any issues at all based on other conversations we've had in this class with the way this was written?
Yes.
What do you
Mhm.
see?
Well, first of all, that subject line is not descriptive enough. It's just new policy that's like so random, like somebody might not even open it.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty crappy.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? What do you think about the tone of that
Kind
email?
of passive aggressive. From what I
Yeah,
read, it's passive aggressive. Like it's oh obey this new policy and stuff, but it's not really like oh just to keep you remind you just to like keep you updated. We have a new policy. It's like passive aggressive instead.
yeah. Didn't we just talk about writing something that's friendly and courteous?
Yes.
That doesn't sound friendly and courteous to me at all. That was good, Arlen. Way to go. What else? Are there, remember we talked about being too wordy and looking for things, looking for ways to say things in a simpler way?
Yeah, it's a
Well,
new policy, but it's explaining a little bit too much. Like
Well, it
it
is.
should have been like a little bit of like it should have had the new policy along with what it means, and it should be a little bit simpler.
What do you think of the phrase "in view of the foregoing"? Is there a better way to say that?
Yes.
What could you say?
Mm. It should be like cut down and made a lot more simpler. Doesn't people don't need to have these.
So tell me so give me another way to say it.
Mm. Let's see. Let's- how about we need to set up a new policy because of such and such and such of the first paragraph.
We can say therefore, maybe, instead of in view of foregoing.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
say as well a message to our staff about a new policy.
Yeah, therefore, to me, it still sounds pretty academic, kind
Mm.
of overly schooly, you know? What if we said for this reason or because of this? Just a little simpler, right? A little bit more, just a little, just a little bit more folksy down home, Make people more relaxed. Because I'm feeling like when I'm reading this, that a lawyer wrote this. Don't you get that feel?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the next one, I am herewith instructing your office. Same deal, right? Now, and also people don't like to feel like they're being compelled or forced to something. But when this guy says employees must be told,
Sounds like you're telling children.
yeah, or it sounds like you're the kindergarten cop or something, right?
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
makes you not want to follow the policy.
Well, yeah, and does it make you like this guy?
No.
And chances are that you don't report to this guy either. If you don't like this guy and you don't report to him, what are the chances that you're going to actually help out?
Not much.
Pretty bad, I think. Yeah. So address that, those are all some things. So as you're going through that third phase of writing, the review and the revision, one of the things we talked about before was listen for the tone. And put yourself in the reader's perspective and say, man, if I read this, oh, by the way, we just also talked about what's in it for me. Is there anything in here at all that suggests why Caitlin should be interested in helping Patrick?
No, because there's not a compromise for the employees if they follow the policy and stuff like that. It's just aggressive in a way.
Yeah. And there's no benefit to Caitlin that I hear anywhere in here to help Patrick. So, you would, if you were writing this, you would want to think about, this person doesn't owe me anything. This person doesn't report to me. I need this person's help in order to accomplish what it is I have to accomplish. How do I get on Caitlin's good side? And what can I say in this letter to make it easy and make her willing to help me? At the end of the day, we're always dealing with people who have a lot on their desk already. And here comes one more request from Patrick when Caitlin's already buried in work. And she's thinking, I'll help this guy. I'll help him in 2 weeks when, hopefully things slow down. And that could have been avoided if Patrick had just written this better. Okay. All right. So here's another example. This second example takes a look at the first one and says, yeah, that sucked. Let's do this better. So this one goes, please draft a policy. Oh, by the way, I also want to point out the format, right? To, from, subject. And because this is an email, the date's already added. If you were writing a memo, you would have to remember to also include the date. But anyway, please draft a policy outlining the appropriate email used to employees. So already the guy said, please. Everything I needed to know, I learned in kindergarten. Remember that? Please and thank you. What was it that Barney used to do? Please and thank you. Anyway. Okay. So please draft a policy outlining appropriate email used to employees. We need a company email policy because I've received reports of misuse, including those things. This misuse is sapping our bandwidth and slowing the system. Here's a few points that the policy should cover. Emails for business use only. Internet access should not be used for these things. Video may be downloaded only for these things. Email messages may be monitored. Make sure you do that, okay, Caitlin? Put those things in there. Please submit a draft to me. Oh, that was the other thing I didn't realize. Had I thought about it longer, I would have seen it. Remember, we just said in that other slide that you want to provide a due date all the time. So here we go. Please submit a draft to me by October 1st, because we hope to have a final policy completed by, this is why. So we not only did we give them a date, but we explained why, like we talked about. And then finally, call if you have any questions. Now, doesn't that sound more friendly? And because it was broken out into bullets, instead of condensed into these heavy paragraphs, it's easy for Caitlin to pull out the things that she needs to include when she writes it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing is, that point is for the speed and the efficiency and the convenience of the reader. Theo has fallen asleep next to me. Okay. All righty. So we have a writing plan for an email, a memo, and letter replies. We've always got to have, we start with the opening, and then we have the body, and then we have the closure. So if I go back to this for a second, my opening is please draft a policy. My body are the following two sections. And then my closure is please submit a draft to me by, and all of those lines there. So opening, body, closure. Okay. We go back, we start with the subject line, like we saw back here. Please draft employee email policy. Way better than, as you guys pointed out before, new policy. Got a subject line. In that subject line, like we learned last week, we're going to summarize the main information. We're going to use an abbreviated style. Notice when we look at the thing that was written, the example that was written, please draft employee email policy. That's not a complete sentence. If you were going to flesh it out, you've got the opening line for that. Like you've got a and to and and that kind of thing, right? We omit those in the subject line. In the opening, you start directly because this is a positive communication where we're not expecting any pushback. So therefore, we don't have to sell our way into getting support or into explaining why we're making the request. You can start directly by responding. If you're writing back, let's say to Patrick, this time we're Caitlin, responding to Patrick with a summary statement. You'll deliver the information that Patrick's looking for. And if you've got good news to share to the person who wrote you the original communication, put that up front in your opening. We'll look at an example in a minute. Now we look at the body, where we're looking at the subject logically, and we're going to break it down into parts and communicate everything we need to about what was summarized in the opening. Again, to make it simple, we'll use bold, we'll use bullets, we'll use numbers, we'll use different headings and things to kind of guide the reader through the logic of the way we organized our response. At the end, always take that last opportunity to promote something for the future. And then you've got the close. Remember, you're responding to the original request. So this time, as the original receiver, your close is going to be a concluding thought that maybe refers to the information or the action that was requested originally. We talked about avoiding cliches last week. For instance, a cliche could be, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to call. This part, don't hesitate to call, is something that has been worn to death, okay? Like, what does it mean to actually hesitate to call? Isn't there a better, simpler way to state that? Probably. Be cordial. Again, we're talking about positive sounding, friendly, courteous communication. That's cordial. So here's another example, okay? Again, this is being sent in response to a first communication. Dear Nancy, you've been nominated for the award of Best Innovation of the Year in the fight against malaria. The winner of this reward, I got to move my gallery thing here, sorry. Whoops, that didn't help me at all. Trouble is, I can't see the whole document. Okay. The winner of this award at the 2015 edition of our annual Malaria Day, organized by Bill. Oh, well, I guess Melinda's not going to be there anymore, but Anyway, the Bill Gates Foundation. You guys know why Melinda's not there anymore, right?
I don't remember why, but I do remember that she's not
Yeah, she's not.
around.
Yeah. Will be grafted to join the White House Committee on Malaria. She's not, because Bill Gates somehow is involved in this. What's her name? That whole sexual thing with the young girls and the government officials and the,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I can't remember these idiots' names, but he was somehow part of that.
With
Yeah. Once you,
Epstein?
sorry,
with Epstein?
Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and the girl that's involved too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Epstein's not involved anymore either. He uninvolved himself in a jail cell a little while ago.
So they say.
So they say. Yeah, who knows? Once you accept the nomination, you'll be provided with further details on what you can do to improve your chances of winning the award, along with 5 other nominees for the position, and a total of 50 nominees for 10 positions, each representing great accomplishment in their professional fields. To accept your nomination and see other nominees, please visit this website. On behalf of our committee, I salute your achievement and wish you the best. Okay, so this is the outgoing, this is the original sender puts this out. Nancy's been nominated for something. However, Nancy has to accept the nomination, okay? And then he has this nice closing about, I salute your achievement and wish you the best. So what they need for her is to accept the nomination. But overall, what do you guys think about the tone of the letter?
It's friendly, informative.
Yeah. And is there a reason for Nancy to be willing to help out here? What's in it for Nancy?
An award.
Yeah, sure. Here's another example. Different example. Dear Aiken, I'm writing to respectfully advise that you have an outstanding balance of $729 showing on your PayPay account with us. I don't know why we've got this big gap here, but we do. This notice has been sent by PayPay's credit management partner, Zenith Credit Management Solutions Limited. As a highly valued client of PayPay, it's imperative that you simply re-enter your payment details. So that's the ask. We need you to come back in and, and do this. Even if they have not changed, by logging into your PayPay account in order to remit direct to PayPay your outstanding financial liability. And then here's to initiate a payment. Now, why are we putting this in numbered fashion instead of bullets?
Order. Step.
Yeah, because there is a very definite order of the way things have to be done. So you sign in, you click the icon, you make the payment. If you want to change your credit card, you do this other thing. Then you choose the amount that you're going to pay, and then you click and you follow the remaining instructions. So real simple. Please ensure that your payment settings are correct to avoid charging a wrong account. Once payments are made, you'll start receiving these publications from the #1 Silicon Valley magazine. Oh, hey, you know what? There's something in it for me. So if I pay my bill, I'm going to start getting, free copies of a magazine. Okay. So if you have any doubts about the credibility of the email, please refer to your account manager. If you have already made payments for the above, then thanks in advance, and I wish you greater heights in your business. So what do you guys notice has been done in this letter? What is the carry forward from the lecture part we just looked at to the example? What things do you notice in this example?
I think it's benefits for the customer if you get such things. Okay.
Yep. Good. It's definitely there. What else?
It's broken down as previously mentioned, how it should be broken down, the opening with a direct, what the issue is, or, you know, what the subject is overall,
Yes. Absolutely.
and then broken down with steps to do, and then finally what needs to happen.
Yeah. Yes. You guys like the, do you guys like the feel for the letter? Does it sound, is it a nice, you know, courteous, friendly document?
Sounds like a scam to me.
Yeah, it kind of could, except for this one line here about if you've got any doubts, contact your account manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's good about that line, by the way? Why do you think that was put in there?
Because it sounds like a scam.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're anticipating that some people might think this is weird, and they're giving them a way to feel better about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust us.
Hey, trust me, says the guy with the trench coat and the watch is hanging on the inside. Okay. So here's your opening right here. I'm writing about such and such, and we learned in the lecture part a minute ago that in the opening, we provide a summary of what we're going to talk about. Here's the body right there, where we go in depth on, you know, what's important. And then here's, what do we call this?
Closing.
Yes, closing. And that's it. I mean, that's what's involved. So you can have a number of different closings, right? This is a list in case you're looking for things that are, you know, don't always sound the same, or you're not always using the same one. Yours sincerely, yours truly, yours faithfully, warm regards. I mean, all of these are pretty commonly used, some more than others. Now, here's the thing. The way that we respond has everything to do with whether or not we're going to create a bigger mess, or whether we're going to create a really solid relationship with the customer. Yeah. So it's up to us to take the right path for this. Your response sets the tone. Okay. Whenever you're working for a company, you always have to remember that you are a representative of that company. So, you know, you got to take yourself out of it, even if you're feeling kind of cranky or upset with you know, the original letter that came across your desk, and find a way to take these lemons and make lemonade. Companies set policies and they adapt strategies that decide how to respond. So in a lot of cases, you guys, let's say that you have a customer service job. It's a pretty common job to get right out of college. So companies will set these policies that kind of tell their employees what's expected in a certain way. And that's a great thing to have as a crutch or as a learning tool. Here's one. We'll look at this in a little bit. Now, imagine that you work for the Birmingham airport and you've had a really full day with a whole bunch of cranky people, and you're going through your email or you're going through your letters, and it's one rotten egg after another. And then you open up this lovely little pickle here. It goes like this. Dear Birmingham Airport Authority, would it be possible to install a louder, more annoying warning siren for the baggage carousels? The Martian ray gun sound you've installed at present is almost, but not quite, enough to induce sanity in arriving passengers as they wait for their luggage. When it fails to stop sounding, it comes very close, such as last night when it went off for about 15 minutes straight. All the while, the ground crew failed to push the deliver bags button to operate the conveyor. However, I'm not sure you have fully plumbed the depths of annoying sounds. For example, if you had set it to sound like a combination of a European ambulance and a raspy voiced cat that won't stop meowing, you might be able to actually liquefy our brains, or at least drive its attempt self-lobotomization, thus saving you the trouble of actually returning our bags. Just imagine it's playing this song over and over. The downside, of course, is that this might result in a decline in business and also make it much harder to collect parking fees now that passengers are unable to operate their cars. A more reasonable person would suggest that you simply replace the warning sign with something a little bit more bearable or eliminate it entirely. When a flight gets in very late, say 11, which I often end up on, all I want to do are get my bag, go home and go to sleep, all with a minimum of siren alarm sounds at that late hour. In the meantime, distributing earplugs to arriving passengers in the baggage claim areas would be a much welcomed gesture. Is that a nice letter?
No.
Mm-mm.
No, not too nice. But you have to respond now. Remember, we're trying to turn lemons into lemonade. So I want to give you guys 5 minutes to pull out a sheet of paper and come up with a response. I'm going to set my timer here. I'll give you 7 minutes instead, a little bit more time. You guys will hear my own raspy voiced cat alarm thing when it goes off. We'll go back. I'm doing that for the rest of the class there. Okay. Let's motor on. I have to move my gallery again. Okay. So we want to be positive. We want to be transparent, which is what you guys did a good job of. Transparency is honesty. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Have you ever heard that phrase? Never overpromise and underdeliver.
Or to
Yes.
do the opposite.
Overdeliver and underpromise. Yes.
Under promise always.
Yeah. Honesty, timely. So if the letter had come in and it took 6 months to respond to that customer, the feeling is not going to be as positive on the receiving end if something like that happens. They're going to feel like, wow, it took them long enough to get back to me. And then likely they had forgotten they'd even written the letter in the first place. So it's much better to try and respond on a timely basis. Be helpful. So one of the things that could have been included in a reply like that would be, a lot of the flights do hand out earplugs, and if the noise in there right now is annoying, I would suggest that you keep them in.
Mhm.
or something like that, right? Okay, we did this piece. Now, writing positive instruction messages here. just like every other message that we're going to write, there needs to be a subject line, which will, like I've said, summarize the content of the message. You'll have an opening, which is going to elaborate the subject line. And then you will have a body which fully explores everything that needs to be said. If there are instructions, you're going to provide those in an orderly step. So we've already seen some examples of that in one of the earlier things that we saw. You want to arrange those vertically with numbers. We saw that too. And you begin every step in the instruction with an action verb. Imagine that you're writing a recipe. Have you guys ever done any cooking and you're following a recipe in the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay, same thing there. If you look at those recipes, they're all going to be written the same way, right? Empty the, put the flour in the bowl. And, break an egg and mix the egg into the flour. Add the sugar, right? Those are all action verbs. Closing. Again, you're going to summarize, and you want to also lead for something to the future. Leave an open door for other things to happen later. So you request a specific action. You provide a deadline. So here's an example. This is being written to staff members from Kay Warner at Fiberco. The subject is a new procedure for submitting travel expenses. Effective immediately, please follow the procedure for submitting your travel expenses. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Retain. Now look at the verbs. Retain, download, prepare, and submit. So there's our action verbs. Retain detailed itemized receipts for expenses of 25 or more. Download the new employee expense report form from our internet. 3, prepare the report within 30 days. 4, submit to your manager. And then the closing. By following the streamlined reporting procedure, you should receive your reimbursement in 60 days of submission. So laying out what can be expected if you follow the instructions. So that goes to the WIFM, right? What's in it for me? Meaning, look, if you don't follow the implication is, if you don't follow the instructions, you might be waiting a whole heck of a lot longer than just 60 days. Now, personally, if my company told me that I needed to spend my own money and then they were going to take 2 months to pay me back, I'm not sure I'd be real happy with that situation. But that's the situation that we're presented here. So again, this is the opening. That's the body. That's the closing. And this last piece that we see here, Karen Warner, all of that, that's the signature line. Do you guys need to take a break, a bio break or anything before we go on, or should we just keep rolling?
I could use a break.
Okay, why don't we take 10 minutes, you guys? It's currently 8:23. Let's come back at 8:33. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Right. Good job. All right. So I'll leave it up, and I'll just see you all back here in a few minutes. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to talk about direct claims and how we handle complaints. Okay. This is how you write we'll define what a direct claim is and how we write it. The opening for this thing called a direct claim describes really easily, very simply, what you want the receiver of your letter to do. let's imagine that, you've got a company, let's say that you run a little retail shop, kind of like a Crate and Barrel. So you're doing dishes and silverware and, table settings and things like that. And that you order materials from manufacturers and they ship it in a number of different ways. And one day you've been waiting for this shipment from a company that, ships you China plates, and they come in the box, but the contents of the box are all smashed and broken. Something happened underway. You have to go back in and request, a make good on that, right? You don't have any inventory, number one. And number two, you've already paid for, what they've just delivered you. So you've got a problem on your hands, right? So you want to describe what you want them to do right up front. And you'll even have an idea in mind of what you want this company to do for you to make things right. Okay. In this case, what you want is, since you don't have any inventory in that part of your store right now, because you were waiting on their delivery and it came broken, you need them to overnight it to you. And you want, and you want them to do it without invoicing you because you've already paid it. And, you also might be requesting an explanation when the remedy is not obvious. Let's say it's not as straightforward as what I just described. It's more complicated than this. And you're not sure if they actually owe you money. You're not sure if they can actually overnight it to you. You're not really sure what can be done, but you're saying, hey, there's a problem here and I need your help to figure it out. All of those could go into the opening. In the body, you're going to explain your claim. Basically, you're going to say, look, we placed our order for the latest shipment of China dishes 2 weeks ago, assuming that we would, receive it on time and everything would be fine, and like it always has been in the past. But unfortunately, this is the situation that we've got. So you're providing the claim, I need you to do this for me, and this is why I believe that you need to do it. You'll also add some details describing the desired action. So you're making it really clear what your ask is and why you believe they need to do this for you. Then you write the closing. In the close, you're going to end pleasantly with a goodwill statement. A goodwill statement is a statement that indicates that you continue to be open to doing business with this company in the future. You're not upset. It's not a deal breaker, but you need their help. You also want this accomplished by a certain date. So here's an example of a letter like this. Written to Miss Linda Doe, who's the managing director of Fantastic Stores, dated the 15th of February, some time ago. The subject line, it's claim for outstanding payment. So just looking at the subject line, I already know pretty much what the opening is going to be. It's going to be, I've got this, I need you to help me with this payment, and these are the reasons why. So we have the opening. Dear Miss Doe, this is to inform you that the payment of Fantastic Stores for the January consignment. Zoe, do you know what a consignment is?
Like a second hand or something.
Well, it's kind of like that. A consignment is, let's say that you have a retail store, but the way that you run your store is you don't buy the inventory until you've already sold it. So the vendors that you do business with receive their payment once you've sold everything through.
Okay.
So
So
yes. So they're putting their inventory in your store on consignment. Okay.
got you.
All right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure you understood the background. So Fantastic Stores for the January consignment of Fine Cotton Industries is still outstanding. We've delivered the consignment on January 2014. The total outstanding amount is $7,000. So that's the opening. Now we go to the body. According to the terms of the contract, you're liable to make the payment after 7 days of the delivery. So this example is a little bit different than the one I just told you about, but this is also a consignment arrangement, okay? According to the terms of the contract, you're liable after 7 days of taking delivery. I'd like to remind you that it's more than a month, and still we have not acknowledged regarding payment, meaning we've not been paid yet. If
But according to
perhaps
that
you're-
letter, it's 3 years later.
Good point. So we want our payment, plus we want 3 years of interest on top of it, right? Now, if perhaps your payment was recently submitted, please accept our thanks for helping to clear this up. Also, should you have any questions that I can answer, please contact me here at Fine Cotton Industries. I'll follow up with you by February 22nd. So in 1 week, right? Because if you notice, it's dated the 15th. So I'll follow up with you by the 22nd if we have not heard from you first in order to conclude the transaction, which means in order to finally get paid. Okay. Thank you, Jonah Wilkins, Fine Cotton Industries. So that's the first letter that comes out. So what you notice again is, like I said, in the opening, you're explaining what you want and you're explaining when you need it by. And then in the body, you're providing the rationale why you believe that you're due this certain request, why they need to do this for you. And then in the closing, like we've also talked about, you're also providing a due date. I need this done by the 22nd. And if I haven't heard from you by then, I'll be following up with you to get payment. Okay, so that's our example there. Now, the letter that goes out like this needs to have a response. And we call the responses to letters like this adjustment messages. So it's the response to a claim letter. This is a claim letter, and the response is going to be an adjustment message. We write these things for two reasons. One, we want to keep the relationship. Things kind of went sour, but we can improve it. I need the customer to trust us again so that we can continue to sell them the product that they buy from us. Number two, I'd like to promote additional business for the future to add on to what they're already buying from us today. So the first piece is fix the relationship, and two, start building again to do more in the future. Okay, so when a company receives the claim and they decide to respond favorably, we call that message an adjustment, like I just said. This adjustment letter is going to fix what's wrong. If there's a problem, it's going to be addressed and fixed. The second thing that it does is it builds confidence back with the customer in your ability to service them the way they need to be serviced. And the third thing that it does is it sets the stage for additional business in the future. So we have to write it. And boy, aren't these beginning to look super familiar? You know what's already going to come, right? You're going to have a subject line, you're going to have an opening, you're going to have a body, and you're going to have a closing. It's always like this. That's always the process. No matter what kind of a letter we're writing, it's always going to have these four parts. And the function is always going to be the same. So subject line, identify the past correspondence because you're replying, and you talk in the subject line about the original topic. You refer to the issue that's on the table. The opening. You grant the request, meaning that you say, yes, we're going to do what you want. The next, or, and you want to sound happy to do it, right? You don't want to sound like, oh, geez, it's such a pain. And man, it's going to cost us a lot of money. And, I hate that fact that you're whining to me about your problems, but yeah, I guess we'll do this. That's totally the wrong tack to take. The body. You give details about how you're going to meet the request. And like I said earlier, what you're trying to do overall is rebuild trust in the relationship. Things went bad. You should not have delivered that case of china dishes all smashed and broken. You're going to talk about how hard your company works to keep their customers satisfied and happy. And then you apologize if it's necessary. You apologize for the situation, but here's what's really important. While you're apologizing for the difficulty that the customer has been presented with, but you don't apologize for having delivered the dishes broken. Very important difference. I'm sorry for the situation that you're in. We want to make sure that we address this for you, because it may not actually be your company's fault that the dishes broke. It's highly likely that when they left the warehouse, everything was fine. But the guys at UPS decided that they were going to play football with that box of dishes. And during shipment on the truck, and that stuff was rattling around and it wasn't held securely in place. And by the time it delivered, things had gone badly. But the dish company doesn't do the shipping. They use UPS or DHL or FedEx or somebody else. So they don't want to admit responsibility for the dishes breaking. They're just saying, we know the situation that you're in sucks and we're going to help you. Very, very big difference here. Okay. So in the body, you don't want to talk about trouble, regret, misunderstanding, fault, or error. These are negative words. What we're trying to do is create lemonade out of lemons. Things are bad. Don't dwell on the badness. Dwell on the fix. So sound positive. These words, trouble, regret, misunderstanding, fault, error, those are all sour milk kinds of words. It's not the right tone. And don't blame the customers, even if it was their fault. I mean, the way that could go down, just so that you can imagine it, would be, we always ship our inventory in perfect condition. Are you sure that one of your own stock clerks didn't drop it? Wow. If somebody gets that in a letter where the company is trying to shift the blame and put it back on the customer, how's the customer going to feel about that? Is that going to go down well?
Absolutely not.
No, never. Don't blame people in your own company either. I am so sorry that happened. We've got a bunch of real morons out back in the warehouse. I bet one of those dorks did it. That's probably not the right approach either. Avoid making unrealistic promises that you can't guarantee that the situation will never, I am so sorry. You know, I promise this will never, ever happen again. Like we just looked at, it was outside the company's control. They shipped it with a third-party shipper. Something happened during shipment that was not the company's responsibility, wasn't their fault. And it could happen again. All you can say is that we always stand firm about our 100% satisfaction guarantee. And we're going to do what's necessary to make things right. That's a long distance from saying, we'll make sure that it never happens again. Now, the only time that that ever works is like if, you know, the husband shows up to pick up his wife late from work and he's kept her waiting for an hour and a half. At that point saying, I'm sure I will never keep you waiting again, ever. That's also probably an overpromise, but it works. Especially if the husband shows up with a bouquet of flowers or takes her to dinner on the way home. Okay.
Yeah, after 18 years, I'm not sure that it still works.
Good point. See, I've only been married now for 7, so I'm
Oh.
still in that grace period.
Yeah, 18
Yeah.
years here.
Right. Okay. The closing. We can guess already what's going to come in here, right? There's going to be a summary about what the fix is going to be. We're also going to look for new business in the future, right? We're looking ahead. We've gotten past the negative thing and we're looking forward. You express appreciation that the customer took the time to write. Like the airport thing, for instance. A lot of people don't take the time to complain or to make things, and they don't give the other company an opportunity to fix what went wrong. So the relationship ends right there. They'll never do business with that company again. So you'd much rather hear that there's a problem because you're now empowered to fix it. That's a good thing that they wrote that. You want to end positive, looking forward, maybe talking about future business opportunities. And the way that you would do that possibly would be, you know, I really appreciate you taking the time to write and giving us an opportunity to fix this situation. I'd like to call you next week because our company is about to launch a new set of products that I think could do really well in your, kitchen utilities store or whatever it is, right? In your dish, crate and barrel sort of thing. I'm not speaking very well, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Avoid referring to unpleasantness by mentioning again what went wrong. Look, you've already fixed it. So don't close by reminding the person what went wrong. You just did all this work to put a smile on that person's face. Leave it there. It's done. It's over. It's in the past. Okay, now I'm gonna move my little gallery thing. So we're going to look at writing a letter like that. First thing we do when we write a letter, and this is important format for us to learn, is we start with the address. Usually there's actually 2 addresses. This letter only shows 1. So we would start first by putting our own address at the very top. Then below it, you're going to put the customer's address. And then below that, you're going to put the date. Okay. The salutation, which is Dear Bob, Dear John, Dear Zoe, whatever, Dear Miss Hughes, and the opening. I've just received your March 24th letter about the damaged shipment that you received through Green Tree Freight and regret the inconvenience it's caused you. Remember, we're not saying that we're sorry that you received the broken dishes. We're saying that we regret the inconvenience. From your account of the problem, I'm quite sure that your request for the, the $240 on the damage to the 2 crates of Valjean Cristal stemware will be granted. So you're saying, hey, we're going to take care of this. Now you get to the body, the details. A certain amount of breakage of this sort does unavoidably occur in cross-country shipping. I'm sorry that it was your company that had to be the one to suffer the delay. Notice they're not saying, I'm sorry that the dishes arrived broken. They're saying, we understand that this sucks, but notice it had to ship cross-country, and sometimes this happens. I must remind you to keep the damaged crates in the same condition that you received them until one of our local reps can come and see it for himself. That inspection will take place in 2 weeks. If everything's in order, like it sounds like it will be, you can expect the full reimbursement within 2 weeks after our representative's inspection. Okay. So they're providing detail about what needs to happen in order for the adjustment, in order for the $240 check to be written. That's why at the beginning here in the opening, she says, I'm quite sure that your request will be granted. That's why she's not saying the check is in the envelope, because the company still has to do their process to make sure that it's within their, contract. Certain things have to be done in order for that to be made good. The closing. I hope this unfortunate accident will not keep you. This is how we build for new business. I hope this unfortunate accident will not keep you from having merchandise shipped by Green Tree Freight in the future. Signature, David Morgan, Green Tree Freight, whatever. Okay. So we see how that all came together. And I tried in there to point out how what was in the letter ties back to what we had in the lecture material, so that you can kind of see, okay, in the future, when you've got a homework assignment that it's looking for you to write a letter like this, or better yet, when you're at work and you need to write a letter like this is how you incorporate all those parts. Now, goodwill messages are super important because business is all about human relationships. When we write a goodwill letter, it could be a letter, it could be a note, it could be a card, it could be a text, whatever. It's being written to improve the relationship you have with somebody else. And we'll look at a few examples of these things, okay? But that's what they're for. Kindness and goodwill. So there's 5 S's of a goodwill message. The first S is be spontaneous. Spontaneous means, do it right away. Don't do it a month and a half after whatever you're praising occurred. Be specific. So if you're congratulating somebody on a really great presentation that you saw that person make, it's not enough to say, hey, that was a great presentation, and be done with it. What you need to show that you really believe that it was a great presentation, what you'd want to do is to say, John, I enjoyed your presentation very much. In particular, I really liked your the section about whatever topic. I thought it was insightful. I think that your recommendations that you made were excellent. And I look forward to learning more about how we can achieve this in the future. So you're showing that what you're writing is not just fake, phony, because you're trying to, get something out of this guy in the future. You're doing it because you really felt like it was a great thing. Keep it short. And be selfless. So being selfless means that you're doing this to benefit somebody else. Let's say that you wrote a customer of yours a letter that went something like this. Dear Sam, I understand that you recently won an award in your industry for, greatest, largest sales in the district for 2020. I wanted to be sure to be one of the first people to congratulate you. Way to go. Done. If you were not being selfless, you would say, and by the way, my company is about to launch a new product, and I would really like an appointment with you next week to come in and show you this new product. Because putting that into the letter that you wrote just cheapens everything that you just said. It makes the person doubt your sincerity. Like, instead of thinking, oh, what a nice guy Bob is for writing a letter like this, he didn't need to take the time to do that. How thoughtful. The customer is going to think instead, this guy just wants to sell me his new stuff. He doesn't really think he was so great that I was the number one, selling, retailer in the area for 2020. He just wants more business out of me. What a cheap gimmick, blah, blah, blah. So we want to be selfless. It's not about you at all. It's all about the other person and the great thing that happened for them. Okay. And that's 4. And then the 5th S is sincere. So you can only be specific and you can only be selfless if you're being sincere. If you really feel like what happened was a great thing. Because if you don't necessarily feel that way, you're going to have a hard time finding something to be specific about. And it's going to be difficult for you to avoid looking for an angle that somehow this is going to benefit you in the future. So it has to be all about sincerity. We can write goodwill letters or notes as a way of saying thanks. Thank you notes are typically short and they're handwritten on note paper or in a Hallmark card or something. Because you're saying you appreciate something, thank you. You want to make a special point of it. Like, this doesn't come off of a word processor, right? This doesn't get printed by your LaserJet printer in the office. If this is really something that's sincere and special for you, then you take the time to sit your butt down and write it in cursive and put it on a nice note card and make it a special occasion that you sent this. That's also part about being sincere and being selfless. It's a note, right? So the fact that it's a note also means that it's short. And the fact that somebody did something for you that you're thanking them for, and you thanked them right away instead of waiting 6.5 months until you get around to it, means that you were being spontaneous. So those are all the 5 S's. Now, here's some reasons why we want to write these goodwill letters. And it's really all about the fact that in business, it's all about personal relationships, and it's all about our ability to influence what happens around us. We need other people. We need them as customers. We need them as good vendors. We need them as helpful colleagues within our own companies. And to get this sort of strong network around you, you have to be a person that's worthy of people wanting to help. In other words, you have to be a person that other folks like. And the best way to be liked is to show people that you appreciate them first. It's a lot easier to like somebody who likes you, obviously, right? So the first part is you're being politically savvy. You're realizing that people have a choice whether to hurt you or to help you. They can either stand in your way of you achieving your goals, or they can get on board and help you, and they can work with you to get it done. And within a lot of corporations, a lot of companies that you might go to work for, most of the time, company politics has at least some degree of, there are folks that would just as rather see you dead as help you. There's a lot of folks at work that would be just as happy to stick a knife between your shoulders as to answer your request, because they believe, unfortunately, that the way that they move forward can only happen if somebody else loses.
Very
Have you
true.
guys ever experienced this in your own lives? Have you seen this yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I see you
All the time.
nodding your head, Esmeralda. So it's like you can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, this happens all the time. One of the first jobs I ever had, my boss and I became really good friends over time. And but our office politics were really nasty. And when people were out there doing stuff like this and behaving in this way, our shorthand term for this was the long knives are out. The long knives.
It's true.
It's totally true. Sad, but true.
Uh,
Okay, self-promotion. Not only do we need to be politically savvy, but we have to do things in a way that's gonna encourage other people to want to help us. You can call this self-promotion if you want to. I frankly just call doing things like this being a good guy, or a good, or a good, woman or something. But in some way, it's obviously also self-promotion. Doing this builds trust. If you're the guy that never helps anybody, people are going to look twice at helping you, because most of us are more quick to help folks that we believe will return the favor at some point. Isn't that true? That means that you have to trust that person to be able to return the favor. And if you're not a person like that, and people know it, and in a company where people have to work together all the time, it quickly becomes apparent, because people notice you're either building trust or you're eroding it. You're also in a business, you also have to create a network. Meaning, who in the organization do you need to go to in order to get things done? So you recognize where the source of power is, and you recognize where, things get done, and you realize, okay, I need to have a relationship with these certain people so that my projects can move forward without a whole lot of holdup along the way. Because when people are doing their job, and at work, our jobs are often about having to help other people get their work done. It's always a decision. Whose work am I going to put in front of somebody else's work? If I have a choice right now between three things that all need my attention, and one of them belongs to Bob, and one of them belongs to Tim, and one belongs to Andy, and I've got an awesome relationship with Andy, I'm going to do Andy's request first. Doesn't that sound obvious?
yes.
This is just the way people think. Maybe I'm telling you guys there's stuff that you haven't been aware of before. But just think about your personal lives. If it's not at work, I'm pretty sure that you've known people like this other places other than work. Is that true? Is that a good assumption?
Well, as you know, for me, I'm older, so yes.
You've had more experience, yeah. Maybe some of you guys have not seen it happen yet. Well, I don't know about that. Think about work teams that you've had in classes before where you had to do group projects. Did you ever notice that some folks on that team seem to do more work than others? Or did you
Yeah.
ever notice that some people on that team could be trusted more than other people to get things done? So you realize who the valuable team players are. Or in high school sports. How many of you guys that were ever involved in high school sports? There must have been people on those teams that you felt better passing the football to, because you knew that if they got the ball, they would carry it down the field. But if you threw it to the other guy over there, he was kind of like he had, two left hands, and neither one of them could catch the ball worth a shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you realize where the value is. You realize who the doers are. And you build trust. If I throw the ball to Tom, he's going to catch it and he's going to run it down the field. But if I throw it over there to Sam, Sam's probably going to fumble it and trip and just, we'll blow the play. So for sure, I'm not throwing it to Sam. Okay, we have to reply to goodwill messages, right? Let's say that you just received one, Paul, right? Somebody just sent you a note thanking you or praising you for this great presentation you did in one of your classes recently. And you've received it and you think, oh, that was nice. What do you do next?
I'll reply back with positive message.
Yeah,
So like just
yeah.
say thank you.
yeah.
Acknowledging that and
You acknowledge
continue
it,
on.
right? So so in some cases, you'll send a brief note expressing appreciation. You tell the person how great that made you feel. The other day when you did that for me, I got to tell you, I was having a pretty down day. I had a lot to do and I was really worried about hitting some deadlines. I was really feeling kind of down. But you took the time to do that for me, and it just made my whole day go better. Just wanted you to know that. And that's a great response, right? Because everybody, the person who sends a positive message himself on some days needs a pickup too, right? So when you cultivate, an atmosphere at work that is more like this instead of the negative stuff that I was describing, everybody likes coming to work more. Everybody works with more effort and more interest. People want to stay around longer because it's difficult to find really great teams like that. So you accept praise graciously. And you don't, some people get uncomfortable when they receive praise. Part of it is cultural. In Japan, they have a saying translated, it says that the nail that stands up gets hammered down. Asian cultures in general, Zoe, correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, Asian cultures are group oriented. They don't like being singled out for things. It's embarrassing to be singled out. Am I right about that, Zoe?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So if you highlight somebody's achievement, rather than making them feel great, the fact that you did that, it actually could make them feel like, boy, I better not do that again because that was an awful experience for me. I felt embarrassed or uncomfortable or whatever. And so you're going to get the exact opposite response that you want. So part of doing this and executing this well is understanding the background of your team members, how they would perceive it, and putting yourself in their shoes. So it's still a great thing to let people know. I mean, everybody, I don't care who they are, likes to be recognized, but it's how you do the recognition. Somebody who is more group oriented, less individualistic, like Americans tend to be, would probably, I mean, Zoe, how would you like to be made aware that somebody thinks you did a great job? Do you want that recognized in a meeting at work with a lot of people around? Or is there something that you would prefer?
I prefer individual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because Asian people normally is humble, so they
yes,
really need front of people to get.
yes, that's right. Yeah. Whereas Americans, we like to be, we like to be, noticed. That's how our culture and how we've been raised. So it's just understanding how different people look at the world. Okay. Can we do it in an email? What do you guys think?
You
Yes.
can, but it's not going to be as good.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's not feeling like a special thing, is it? It's still nice to hear it. It's better than being totally ignored for your achievement, right?
True.
But it's probably not as great as it could have been. I still remember the first time that anybody ever did that for me. I was in high school. I was in this business club. We were all working on a project, and one of and my particular team's leader thought that something that I had done was really great. That was a new member, and she wanted to recognize that I had done something nice. So at a meeting that we were having, she actually said it to the whole group. Hey, I want to recognize that Joe, who's a new member, did something really super. Here's what he did. And she actually had a really nice card in an envelope for me, thanking me for what I had done. Now, I'd never seen that done before. No one had ever really done that for me. And I just felt really great about it. I was confused a little bit too, like, why did she do this? It was a new experience for me, but I really liked it. She was showing great leadership qualities. And the fact that she was a student at the time doing that meant that she had gotten some pretty good training along the way. So depending on the relationship with the receiver, sending a goodwill message by email is acceptable, okay? Depending on who they are. And an email might precede a phone call or a card. Like, the first thing that you can do is send a quick email, because you really want to jump on this right away. And you realize that it might be a few days before you can get around to doing something bigger. So you take the small step first, and then you can follow up in another way. Handwritten notes are most impressive because they remain and they can be savored. Do you guys still have cards that you've received, or maybe plaques or trophies or awards or things that you got for things that you achieved?
Yes.
Yes. Tell me about yours, Paul.
Oh, just like happy birthday letter from my nephew and niece. I still keep it.
Oh, that's nice.
And the trophy from like my previous work, like employee of the month and those kind of stuff.
That's more like the thing that I was thinking about. Yeah. And you keep those because they're important things to remember. They're also great things to be able to put down on your resume, by the way. Special recognitions that you got. Yeah, great. So here's an example, right, of a goodwill message. Dear Maggie, congratulations on completing the construction of the new marketing wing of XYZ. I know how much time you put into the plans for the building, and I really appreciate the innovation and attention to detail that you brought to the project. We knew you were the right person for the job. Thanks so much for your work and your staff's hard work. We look forward to future projects with you. Boy, if I got a letter like that, makes my day. Right? It's a small gesture. It doesn't need the, if the person doesn't send it to you, it's not like you're going to help that. It's not like you're going to stop working with that person. But the fact that they did means that you're going to be just that much more willing to help them in the future. And the person who executes a tactic like this, and let's call it a tactic, I said, be selfless. we know that when you do stuff to build relationships, at bottom, you're doing it because you want to improve the relationship. So it's not exactly completely selfless. What we really mean by that, by being selfless, is don't put that kind of meaning into the letter itself. It's always going to be a motivating driver for you to do those kinds of things. But the difference is all in the packaging, right? Execution is everything. And that's the whole chapter, you guys. Questions, thoughts, comments? Nope.
Nope.
Okay,
No.
good. So then just to recap what we talked about at the very start tonight, you guys have got an exam this week. It's due by Sunday at 11:59. Monday at 11:59. Okay. You can use your notes, your book, whatever, but you've got 70 questions and 75 minutes to take the exam. So that means that you're not going to have a lot of time to look up all the answers. Way better if you go into that test understanding the material first. Okay, so take some time this week. Take some time this week to go through your notes, brush up on what's in the book and that stuff so that you guys do great. The test is not hard, I promise. Usually when I give this test, the class averages are super high. And I think you guys are going to crank on it. Just do yourselves the favor to prepare a little bit, okay? The other point that we talked about at the beginning of the evening is assignment 2 for the class project. It's available again in Canvas. It's currently under the current week. I am going to move it to be up under the section about the class project in general. But if you guys have time this week and you're looking for something to do, you can start in on that. Otherwise, it's due on the 10th. And you'll upload that to the same Dropbox folder you used before. Are we all good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great visiting with you guys tonight. And have a good week, okay? If you need anything, you have questions, you want to discuss something, I'm always happy to hear from you guys.
Thank you.
You betcha. See you later, guys.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Have a good
Professor.
night.
See ya. Bye-bye.